I don't play with words. I don't play with people either. I failed PE because I ain't play at school. I don't have pets because I ain't gonna play with them either. What you're asking me to do is foolish. Your plan is short-sighted. This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, Resurrection, Part 19. When we left off, the International Trafficking Organization's House of Cards was coming tumbling down. The work that Q had done in concert with the Lopez organization and the government had resulted in a clear picture being painted of not only how the trafficking organization operated, but the underlying hierarchy of the organization. These operations had uncovered the identities of three of the organization's leaders: Jerry Rouse, Donald Green, and Johnny Decker. Jerry Rouse is an old name from a few seasons ago. He was the uncle of Q's previous partner in the feds. When he was taken down after Melissa's Bosch kidnapping, the shenanigans didn't stop. So when Q agreed to a sit-down with his boss with the feds, he was ready to stand on the decision that he and the other heads of the 5 families had made. When they ID'd the head honcho, they would not be turning the 3 men over to the government. And that's exactly what he told Supervisor Acevedo in their off-the-record closed-door meeting. Q said, "The last time we played it the straight and narrow, and all he did was go into a federal prison and continue to collude with his co-conspirators. There's no doubt in my mind that he was responsible for the failed attempt on my children and the kidnapping of Tamara Camp." Supervisor Acevedo said, "Q, I understand where you're coming from. I get your line of thinking, but I cannot give you the okay to execute these men." Q said, "I ain't say nothing about executing nobody. And if I was planning to execute somebody, I certainly wouldn't ask for permission." Supervisor Acevedo said, "Q, I told you. This meeting, the discussion is off the record." Q said, "I feel that, and I appreciate it. That doesn't change what I'm saying to you. I'm not an executioner. I don't plan to execute anybody." Supervisor Acevedo said, "Let's not play with words, Q." Q said, "I don't play with words. I don't play with people either. I failed PE because I ain't play at school. I don't have pets because I ain't gonna play with them either. What you're asking me to do is foolish." Acevedo said, "No, it's not. I'm trying to keep you out of trouble. I'm trying to honor the commitment that I made to you and your family." Q said, "Add that to the long list of things that I appreciate. But I can't do it. Your plan is short-sighted." Acevedo said, "I'll humor you." "How so?" Q said, "Don't ever humor me. You either hear me or you don't. And if you don't, we can end this whole conversation." Acevedo said, "And that's why I chose you. I told you back in Miami that there was a job for you to do and you were the perfect man for it. My position and opinion hasn't changed. I don't like this mess you've gotten yourself caught up in. I understand that you felt like there wasn't another way. I respect how you were able to negotiate an agreement with the vice president that was in your family's favor. And I also appreciate the fact that in this world, you're a unicorn. You aren't cavalier with other people's lives. You're a principled man who," Q said, "enough with the flattery. You're not going to convince me that turning these men over to the government is going to make this all just go away. Because I know and you know that it's not. If it could, there'd be a whole lot of people out of a damn job in the FBI. You and I included." Acevedo said, "And you actually think that killing 3 men is going to do what prosecution won't?" Q said, "Nah. Have you ever had an ant infestation in your house? What happened when you killed the ants that you could see?" Acevedo said, "They just kept coming." Q said, "Right. Whether you incarcerate them or somebody kills them, they're gonna keep coming." Acevedo said, "Then what are you proposing?" Q asked, "You still humoring me?" Acevedo said, "No. I'm listening." Q said, "I know a man who has a particular skill set. His abilities rival anything that you could ever employ. He is individually capable of uncovering more secrets than top agents in the Fed, the CIA, HSA, NSA, and all them alphabet boys. And he's gotten into places where he shouldn't be, accessed information that the traffickers have invested millions of dollars and thousands of man hours to protect. He's using that information right now to return Chief Camp's daughter to him. You want to get rid of an ant infestation? You don't kill the ants. You don't just destroy the ant hill. You employ an anteater. You know, one of the most interesting things that I've learned about anteaters. Supervisor Acevedo said, hold on, I don't mean to stop you, but why on earth have you been researching anteaters? You said, intelligent people like to know things. Not only that, but I'm a parent. And that is the most important job I will ever have. It's also the most enjoyable and one of the hardest. And there are occasions where it requires every tool at my disposal. And God was choosing my parents. I think he chose the right ones. And that's the only reason why I don't despise this life that I'm living. This is not where I want to be, but this is where God saw fit for me to be. And even from here, I'm still parenting. So I know about anteaters because I just had to teach my children about anteaters to keep my son from throwing his life away. Let me calm down. Where was I? Oh, that's right. The thing about anteaters is they consume more than 30,000 ants and termites a day. And they don't even have any teeth. They use all of their senses to root out the complex, intricate underground tunnels where ant colonies live. Not only do they consume the ants that they find, but they completely obliterate those underground tunnels. They find them using their sense of smell, uncover them using their razor-sharp claws, and flick their 2-foot-long sticky tongues at a rate of 150 to 160 flicks per minute. And the females do all of that while carrying their young on their backs. They are one of the most docile, shy creatures in nature, while also being one of the most deadly. They've been known to take out jaguars and pumas by simply standing on their hind legs and using their sharp claws to turn them into mincemeat. Never in the offense, always on the defense. My point, this trafficking organization is like a colony of ants, and we're not going to be rid of them by prosecution or execution. I got an anteater. And then Q dropped a folder on the desk. When Supervisor Acevedo opened it, he found that the file included a whole lot of very interesting documentation, including names, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, IP addresses, and documents owned by individuals who were either employed by the International Trafficking Organization or one of his customers. And the whole conversation changed. Meanwhile, in New York, Bosch was back in the office of Donald Green. He'd received an update on the plan to rescue Amber, which was the excuse he used to get back in that office. But his real purpose for being there was to, 1, place a bug, and 2, get access to Camille Thibodeau Green, Amber's mother. He said, I'm so worried about her, you know? Before I got here, I thought about something. Her mother's got to be out of her mind right now. Amber told me that her and her mother talk almost every day. Mr. Green, having become real comfortable with Andre, truly believing that while he wouldn't have chosen a black man for his daughter, Andre had shown that he was one way about his baby girl. So he had no problem telling that man exactly what he told his wife and exactly how hard she'd taken the news. He said, she's completely lost it. And there's nothing that I've been able to say or do to get her to calm down. I've actually had to have the doctor come over and medicate her. She hasn't been able to eat, sleep, and she's even been blaming me. And I can't even disagree with her. Because at this point, there's only one of 2 reasons why the Briggs organization would go after my daughter. Andre said, well, what are those reasons? Did the information I provided you not check out? Mr. Green said, I'm still checking into it, but I don't want to say too much. And it's not because I don't trust you. But if what you told me was correct, then I got to be careful with what I say, even in these walls. Bosch had told Donald Green that one of the things that the kidnappers asked Amber was where her father would be hiding their boss's wife and 2 daughters. And Amber had been adamant that her father would never be involved in the kidnapping of a woman and her children because he was a legitimate import-export dealer. Baby, it was clear that Q was playing chess, not checkers. Hell, I wonder if he know how to play Go. But anyway, Donald Green had verified that Donnie Briggs's wife and two daughters hadn't been seen in weeks. And if the intel he'd received was to be believed, they'd gone missing before his daughter was snatched. So as motives went, that was a pretty good one. What he was still trying to wrap his mind around and get evidence for is why exactly his partner in crime would go after the wife and children of Danny Briggs. He considered coming right out and asking him. He decided to do some digging first instead. He'd reached out to his other partner in crime, Johnny Decker out of Houston, to see if the number 2 man in the trafficking organization knew anything at all about the Briggs organization. He was hoping that there was a connection between Briggs and the head honcho that he just wasn't aware of. He figured that if Decker could tell him whether Briggs was friend or foe, that would get him much closer to the answers that he sought. In his mind, if the Briggs organization was a foe, then nobody in the trafficking organization was responsible for his daughter's kidnapping. But if it came back that they were a friend, then he would be looking sideways at his oldest friend. A friend who he'd been bumping heads with as of late. Because in an effort to stick it to the 5 families, he'd made a move on one of Donald Green's Texas Connects. Donald Green was importing and exporting more than just high-value artifacts. He was responsible for the branch of the organization that moved people. And he'd made both political and legal connections in Texas that made moving people a whole lot easier. His partner in crime had the bright idea that if he lured his connect's daughter and held her, without laying a finger on her though, he'd incite the rage of the son of the St. James Kingpin. The Kingpin's children had been known for inserting themselves in the family business. And the expectation was that his son Michael, who'd already shown up at the basketball court and made a fool out of his rival DeAndre, wouldn't be able to control himself if the object of his affection was touched. The head honcho figured that Michael would go on the defense. He'd be willing to trade himself for his girl, or he'd resort to violence and put himself on a journey to either jail or hell behind her. Her father, Chief Camp, had no idea where to look for her, but he'd already reached out to Donald Green, and Donald had pretended like he knew nothing. But he'd gotten into a heated disagreement with his oldest friend. But by Donald Green's estimation, it was much more likely to be retaliation from the 5 families. He knew all about the international trafficking organization's multiple failed operations on the notorious 5 families. And he knew that one of their hugest blunders was the operation that they'd hired an outside organization to carry out in Puerto Rico. What he didn't know was who the organization was. And he also didn't know just how much Andre knew. Bosch had done his job, and he had done it well. He'd come short of finding out the identity of the head honcho, but he had had no problem connecting the dots, because before he showed up in Donald Green's office, he'd used an old trick to catch Donald Green's most trusted employee slipping. There was a reason why Tamara was able to disappear without a trace. There was a reason why no demands had been made, and that didn't escape Q, Stacks, or Bosch. But more importantly, it didn't escape Big Wood. He might have been in Denver, taking care of his woman, recovering from his injuries, and dealing with aphasia. But his mind was still sharp, and he was still a bad nigga. He had always been more than just muscle. And while he couldn't get in the field to bring the traffickers to their knees, he had not stopped working behind the scenes to do just that. The minute he learned that Tamara had been kidnapped, there was no doubt in his mind that it was connected to the traffickers. There was no doubt in anybody in the 5 families' mind that her kidnapping was a part of the ongoing war with them. But it was Big Wood who raised the alarm. Before he left Denton, he told Q, using sign language, that he needed to look into the chief, and that if his suspicions were correct, Tamara wouldn't be in any real danger. Yes, the traffickers were ruthless and dangerous, and they certainly shouldn't be underestimated. But the Texas border was a hot spot for trafficking, and in order to do what they did, they needed an inside man. There was no doubt that they had political and legal connections. They had to in order to do what they did and get away with it for as long as they'd been doing it. And while they did not care who they touched, the way that they had lured Tamara and the fact that they had left DeAndre behind to be able to tell the story led him to believe that the chief was a part of their network. And when Q met with the chief himself, it was clear that he wasn't in on it, but he suspected that he was hiding something. So in all the information that Bosch had received, the chief's phone number was included in it. And so was DeAndre's father's. And with that information in hand, Bosch went to work. I already told you that he'd done surveillance, followed a whole lot of leads, but the Saturday night before the Monday that he walked into Donald Green's office, he'd followed that man's most trusted employee to a bar where he liked to let his hair down. He'd done his research. He knew exactly what that man liked. And when he sent the young boy in, he gave him one job: get him liquored up, get him back to the hotel, get him on audio, agreeing to a price, and then do whatever he felt like. Just make sure it was captured on video. With that audio and video in hand, Bosch had a soldier approach the right hand coming out of church the next morning. Bosch knew the man wasn't going to be worried about anybody in his circle finding out about his proclivities, but he would certainly have a vested interest in keeping that information from the police. And in exchange for a promise that his secret wouldn't get to law enforcement, the man quickly handed over his cell phone. And just like Bosch expected, he found the number for Chief Camp and DeAndre's father, Texas District 26 Representative Hill. Both fathers had been helpful in the search for their children, but Q had quickly deduced that they were both holding back. And he knew that it couldn't have been because they'd made a connection between what went down at the school with his son and Camp's daughter, because Camp didn't know a damn thing about it. His daughter had been one way, and that meant that the two men had secrets that they needed to protect, almost as much as they wanted to get their children back. Bosch didn't even need to act like he wasn't all that concerned with Donald Green finding out why the Briggs organization snatched his daughter, because he knew that Donald Green would be getting a phone call from one of the men that he trusted, providing him with the information that he needed to expose the identity of the head honcho. So instead, he focused his attention on getting himself in position for what he knew was coming next. He picked up the conversation where he and Mr. Green had left off, his wife's distress over her missing daughter. Bosch said, "This is probably going to sound crazy, but I think you should let me talk to her. Amber's told me so much about her mother, and I think she may have told her about me. I think if she hears from me how strong her daughter's been through all this, how strong she is in general, I might be able to give her some perspective, answer some of her questions, and even help her see that this ain't your fault." And Donald Green's dumb behind said, "You know what? That might be a good idea. I can make that happen. Now, I trust that you have my daughter's best interests at heart, but I don't trust nobody enough to let them know where I rest my head. You've already proven that you're pretty good with directions and finding your way back to places. So if we do this, I'm gonna have to blindfold you." Bosch protested just enough to make it look good, because he wasn't gonna need to find his way back to Donald Green's home. He didn't even care about getting in the man's house. He said, "Why can't you just bring her to the condo or arrange a meeting somewhere else? After all I've been through, you think I'm gonna let you blindfold me? And I don't trust nobody that much. You've made it very clear that you don't like black people." Donald Green said, "I don't have a overt issue with black people in general. We can debate that issue some other time. This isn't about you being suspicious of me or me being suspicious of you. It's about something going wrong in this whole situation and you being put in a situation where you have to share information about me in order to save yourself. I've been doing what I do for too long to make that kind of mistake. If my suspicions are right, my daughter's in the situation she's in right now because somebody in my world made a huge miscalculation. And now look at us, trying to rescue my baby girl. I don't want to have to rescue my wife too. I wouldn't survive losing either of them, but I'd be completely done for if I lost them both." Meanwhile, the anteater that Q was referencing was in the parking lot of Johnny Decker's business. He just remotely disabled the security system and all of the locks in the building. Then he got out of the vehicle, proceeded into the building, and walked right past the receptionist. She said, "Hey, where are you going? Come back here. You can't go back there." You know what? I'm not even going to waste my breath because that door is locked. And then she sat there in stunned shock as the uninvited guest walked right through the door that she knew was locked. And when she went to check the cameras to see exactly where he was going, she found that they were offline. She quickly grabbed her desk phone and called security. Behind that locked door, the intruder strolled right into the executive suite, walked past the executive assistant, who was also in shock and yelling, and right into the office of Johnny Decker. Johnny said, "What the f-?" The intruder touched the screen of his phone, and Johnny heard his door lock. Then he took a seat in the chair across from Decker's desk and said, "Why you look so shocked? Wasn't you expecting me? I told you we had a meeting at 10. I know I'm a little early, but my father always told me, on time is late, and early is on time. How you doing, Mr. Decker? I'm him." And Johnny Decker's flabbers were gasted. It only took him a moment to pull himself together, and when he did, he said, "Little boy, ain't no way in hell you him. Who the hell are you, and how the hell did you get in here?" The intruder said, "I know that getting old is kind of hard. Sometimes your hearing starts failing you. They got these little devices that you can get, put in your ears, help you hear a little better." Johnny Decker said, "You're not him, and I don't know why he or she would send a child in here." The intruder said, "I'm definitely him, and I get that you stalling, trying to give your security enough time to get here. They on the way. But if you know like I know, you won't let them breach that door." And almost immediately after he made that statement, security was at the door. They were trying their badges and they weren't working. So they immediately started putting their feet to the door over their shouts and bangs. The intruder said, "You have someone I want, and I have a whole lot of something you want. I will get what I want. But if you think that that anonymous crew, who's made a reputation of hacking servers and releasing secrets, has done a world of damage, then you're gonna want to hear me out. And you're gonna want to do everything I tell you to do. Now, you won't be the first person that I've had to make it clear to that you can't touch what's mine until I'm done with it. But I pray that you're the last."